All right, so we got our activity model, but we actually want to have a way to create, read, update, and destroy, or CRUD. We want to have a way to like do all those things. So it's probably gonna take a few steps here, but let's start off with just making a new branch. So activity, UI, create that branch. I'm gonna go into our local repo and run git fetch so we can have access to that. Then we'll do git checkout activity UI. So git branch again. And actually while we're at it, let's do git branch delete activity model. Okay, so like I said, we don't have a way to like go in and create an activity right now. So let's just work from the outside in. And I'm not going to go through every single step here, or I shouldn't say that. I'm going to go through every single step, but I'm going to try to do it as quickly as possible. So the first thing I want to do here is do Rails generate controller activities. I want to do plural there. Activities. So let's do that. This is always, I like to start off here. You need a controller to start making the views, and running this command it'll generate the controller. It'll be blank, but it'll generate it, and it will also generate like blank tests and a blank folder for our views. So that ran. Actually, I just realized it added that SCSS file in there. So if you do Rails, well, you know what? I could delete this generation, run it again without assets. What's probably a lot more effective is just to go in here and delete this. And that's not required. It's fine if that file is there, but since we're doing everything through Bootstrap, which is loaded into our JavaScript style sheet, I just want to make it kind of clear to anyone else working on this in the future, like we're not really using the asset pipeline, but that's okay. So let's see here. Let's fire up the server. I know nothing's actually going to have happened, but performing start. While that's booting up, we gotta think this out here. So, and I want to start with the most complicated one, which is creating. So let's see here. We get this. We get the root. Let's do resources activities. Activities. Spelling is a weakness of mine, as you can see. So this is going to give us our Restful Routes. And I can show you where I'm getting that from. So I'm getting it from here, Ruby guides. I always try to, the Ruby guides, or not the Ruby guides, excuse me, the Ruby on Rails guides, they have pretty much everything we'd ever need. So by doing resources and then the plural name of your model, it gets you all of these routes by default, which is exactly what we need. Now it gets you the routes, but it's not actually going to make the page for each of these routes. So for example here, by doing resources photos, you automatically get a route that's /photos, and it's going to look for the photos controller with an index action, and it's also going to look for an index of view. So same thing applies for us, except we need to go ahead and build those things. So let's see, we get the routes. Let me go to app, views. We want to go, well, let's go to the controllers first. Activities controller. We want to make sure that before action, we want to make sure the user's logged in. And to do that, Tobias gives us a special helper here. So Tobias gives us this before action authenticate user, and what this will do is it basically means like you got to be logged in to do anything within this controller if you put it at the top. So if I do we actually need to do def new, and then def create. Okay, so for the new, and the new is because we actually need a page to render the form. So /activity/new, it'll just be a form. It's not gonna actually create the activity, but we need a place to actually go to. And what's really happening is it's saying like, okay, before you even try to do this, make sure the user's logged in. And that's because activities need to be associated with users. And there's actually a handy way to do that. So activity equals current user dot activities dot build, and then we're going to do activity params, which doesn't exist yet. So let's go ahead and do that. And we do params dot require. We want to require an activity, and we want to permit the following. And I'm assuming if you're watching this, you know enough Rails to know that this is a common convention of Rails. And it's basically you are only accepting certain parameters to be passed from a form into your application. And we'll go into a little more detail about that. But when you have a form, it has certain values on it. So let's just say we're doing a blog post, it would have a title and a description. The only things that you want to have passed into that are the title and the description. But maybe there's another column on blog posts called like featured, as in like it should be a featured post. But maybe only an admin should do that through like the command line. And if you don't have featured in this permit, even if someone were smart enough to like make a hidden field on the form and submit it, or make a post request with something like Postman or a tool like that, and they knew more about the particular thing they're trying to create than they should, they still wouldn't be able to do it because of this line right here. So let's look at our schema real quick. So we want to permit the duration, we want to permit the category, we definitely want the distance, difficulty, unit. We actually don't want to have the created at or updated at. This happens automatically, although we could actually have those as items on the form, but we'll use date instead. This will just be where someone says, like, you know, when they actually did their thing. And we don't want calculated paste because that'll actually happen on the back end of our application, as you saw. But I definitely could whitelist that if I wanted to later on. But now we have this, we can access it here. Just to be clear though, I could put this in here, but I've done this enough times to know this is the common convention. And also I'm going to be reusing this a few times, so I might as well extract it into one method. So this will instantiate a new activity, but it's not going to actually do anything. Create, we want to change this to create, and if activity.save else, and so we'll render the activity. Actually, not render, we want to redirect to the activity, and let's just do notice created activity. If it doesn't get saved, that means there was some type of error probably on the form, so we can just do render new, and that will just render. It'll go back to like the new page basically with the form. So we have that. We don't actually have any views, so let's just go to app views, activities, nothing in here. Let's just do new.html.erb. Real quick before we start doing anything, let's just see if we're getting what we want. So I'm actually going to just debug this, because within this method we instantiate a new activity built off the current user, which I should also say, like, you could do like activity equals activity.new, and then you do like user, current user, and then you could like put, you know, these params in there too. But this is the convention when you have an association. You do something here. So the model that has many of something is able to do whatever it has many of, so the plural version of that. So a user has many activities, and then you get this build or create method off of that. So that's where I'm getting that from. And let's just debug the activity, put that here, and let's go to our navigation too, because we're going to want a place to actually add these things. So if current user my profile, let's just put a couple of things in here. Or actually, let's probably copy this, because I think it's going to be, we're probably going to want a drop down where it's like where you can see your activities and also create a new one. So let's just do activities, and then in here that gets drop down menu, right? I gotta change the nav bar here. So nav bar, drop down, activities, because we already have another nav bar ID here. I'm glad I caught that now. So then we get link to, create an activity, and then for this we want to actually do new activity path, and that's from doing this. We get that. Trying to think of what else we need to do here. I think that should be it. Let's just see what's going on here. Okay, so this is actually good because you need to be logged in to be able to make an activity. So log in. I think I made this test account, right? Good, I did. This is here. Close that. So okay, activities, create an activity. All right, so what do we got going on here? Permit. Difficulty unit. Okay. See right here, I added a period after difficulty, not a comma. That's easy to fix. Param is missing, value is empty, activity. That's interesting. Oh, you know why? I don't think we actually need to pass these params in here, because those params don't. So what I mean by that is, so if I go in here and I type in params, this is what I'm getting. So I'm on the activities controller and the action is new, but there's no there's no activity param right now. Param being like something that's in the route or like that has to do with this action or it's being passed into this action. So normally you would access that, I think, like this. And this should return nil or something. Yeah, so this is returning nil, which means this thing doesn't work because calling require with a nil object and then running another method off of that, it's just not going to work. But that's okay. That's just because I made this mistake here. So let's just do activity.build, refresh the page. This is that debug right here. So this is loading. Let's just see if we can get a really super simple form up and running. Okay, I just need to kind of refresh my memory on forms. So this is the pattern we want. So we want a form with, and before I get too far, I'm actually gonna make this into a partial because later on when we edit an activity, we want the same form to be loaded, so it's easier to just make one file to store the form logic and inject it as a partial into multiple views. So activity and yeah, this is good. I think we want to do local true. I'm trying to see where this is in here. Local true. So this is because all forms using form with actually do stuff asynchronously, which is fine, but for now I just want to do it not asynchronously just to save a little time. Form with I'll do F and I think the only thing that we need is, I'm trying to go back to our test here, so we need to have a date and a duration, right? Is that the only thing we need? Oh, you know what, now this is making me wonder, like, kind of going back to what I said before, you may not always know the duration of a run, so we might have to think about that again. Like if I went out and ran on a track and just ran a lap on it, I know I ran for 400 meters, but I don't know how long it was, so we actually need to go ahead and fix that, but that's okay. For now, let's just do f.date, or not f.date, excuse me, so it'll be f.label and then it's date. And let's wrap this in a form group. Now this is specifically from Bootstrap, so form group, and then we want like a date helper, so using date and time helpers, probably like date time or something. So we want a date time field. Is this a thing? Let's just double check here. Yeah, let's see here. So I think it's just date time, like that. And we'll do a class of form control. That'll just make it look nice. And we'll copy this, and we'll do duration. We want this to be a number field. We're gonna actually change this. This is just so we can actually see if the form allows us to submit data, and then we'll worry about actually making this work without having to manually add data or duration. And we also need to think about our tests here because this doesn't make sense to me anymore. But enough talk, let's just do that. So that's there, but we have to put it in here. So let's just do, so we want to render, we can just do render form, I think, because it knows to look in the same folder structure that it's in. We don't need to add the underscore. I don't think I have to pass anything into this because it knows about the activity because I put it there. So I don't need to pass it in as a local variable, I don't think. Let's just see what happens. Maybe that's what I need to do. So there need to be datetime field, and I think a number field. Okay, let's actually get rid of this debug because this is kind of getting in the way of stuff. So, and one, let's just create this. Does it work? Oh, okay. Well, this, so it is working. We just didn't make a show route. But if I go into another terminal window, actually let's close that. Do a little split pane action here. Let's just see what's in the database. Let's do Rails C, and then I'm gonna do pass this flag, which means sandbox, and that just means like if I actually go in here and edit or delete or create new data, it won't actually persist to the test database. This isn't really that, or not the test database, the local development database. This isn't as important when you're working locally, but if you're working in production, I'd recommend working in sandbox mode if you're just trying to figure something out before you actually break anything. So I think we should be able to run activity.last. So this is good. If I do .user, it should be test.test. Let's see what we got going on here. So the duration was one. Category was run. No distance, no difficulty, no unit. This is good. This is a good spot to be in. So let's just say git add, git commit, and we'll just make this message something like build MVP activities create, and we'll go ahead and push that up.